when Elon Musk says something like, this is a corrupt judge acting corruptly, that is stone cold bullshit. That is a judge in New York, a federal judge in the Southern District of New York, applying the facts and the law to a question of whether things should be temporarily frozen.
Brian Tyler Cohen on his channel takes a look at a clip of Kristi Noem defending Elon Musk and Doge's rip and run as they get into the treasury systems. And he talks also about recent New York judges putting the kibosh on it all in no uncertain terms. I'm going to have some comments as we go. Let's watch this together, and then I want to know what you think in the comments, but let's jump right into it.
I remember a time when Republicans were very careful about and worried about the government, particularly unelected people.
Well, we can't trust the government anymore.
Having access to personal data.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You are the government.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is that the American people now are saying that we have had our personal information shared and out there in the public.
Elon Musk has access to it.
Yeah, but Elon Musk is part of the administration that is helping us identify where we can find savings and what we can do. And he has gone through the processes to make sure that he has the authority
You're totally
the president has granted him. I am today by the work that he's doing by identifying waste, fraud, and abuse. And his information that he has is looking at programs, not focusing on personal data and information.
Not focusing on it, but he has access to it.
We'll be continuing to talk to him about what all he has access to. But this audit needs to happen to make sure that we are going through a process that adds integrity back into these programs.
That was Trump's Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem serving up a word salad in order to try and justify Elon Musk's intervention in all aspects of our private information, ultimately saying that people don't trust the government only to be told that she is the government. I mean, honestly, nothing makes it clear that Republicans only know how to whine from the minority than Kristi Noem complaining about the government while she's quite literally a cabinet official in the government. No notes, Kristi. No notes. I mean, she literally complains that our personal information has been shared by the government as a response to a question about Elon Musk and his band of teenage lieutenants having unfettered access to our personal information. How do you both complain about a problem and defend your party doing it in the same breath? If you're looking for the definition of cognitive dissonance, this is it. And of course, she eventually gets around to saying that all of the exposure of our sensitive private information is justified because Elon will ultimately root out waste, fraud, and abuse. But let's think about this for a minute. What is the federal agency most known for financial mismanagement? What's the federal agency that's failed the last 7 audits in a row? That would be the Pentagon. And yet, has Elon gone to the Pentagon? Nope. He's instead spent his time going after agencies like USAID, which account for all of 0.5% of the budget, and which just so happen to be investigating his company, Starlink.
Yes, and that's the heart of it, is that there were active investigations against Elon Musk's company. But the other thing is like, oh, we got to get this waste out of here. It's 0.5% of the budget. This is a tiny little thing compared to some of the elephant in the room that they certainly don't want anyone talking about is Medicare and Medicaid.
Also spent his time going after the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has returned a staggering $21 billion to 205 million consumers. The only purpose of the CFPB is to assist consumers who've been defrauded by predatory financial institutions. And yet, that's apparently a target for Elon Musk. So when people like Kristi Noem say that he's rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, I find it especially curious that they're not asking any questions about the fact that the agencies he's targeting are a net positive to Americans in the world, and yet the agencies known for waste, fraud, and abuse are thus far getting a free pass. Do they want to actually root out waste, fraud, and abuse, or do they just want to give Elon unfettered access to our private information while placating themselves by just saying that he's going after those things?
Well, of course, but I think USAID is two things. One, I think it's a test case, right? It's relatively low-hanging fruit for them, but they can sort of shut stuff down illegally, without congressional oversight to see how much of a squabble comes back, right? And the courts respond slowly. So this is just this is the Matt Gaetz, right? It's not the end of the universe as some of this stuff gets stopped, but it clogs things up. And two, it is a first salvo in terms of getting everyone else used to, accepting it, right? Because then when they go after other stuff, there's going to be fatigue and exhaustion, and the plate's going to be full with the courts being jammed up in this other thing. It's going to take even longer when they get to Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, because there's already going to be a backlog of stuff like this.
By Noem's response here, I think we've got our answer. And while these people are so unvexed about some random unelected billionaire having access to all of our private information, the reality is that if the tables were turned and George Soros was granted full access to our data and Social Security numbers, Republicans would rightfully be having a full 24-hour per day meltdown. I mean, we all know it. It would completely envelop the news coverage.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, we're a little bit removed from Obama at this point, but in Trump's first term, that was an easy game to play. As if Obama and his administration had been doing any of this stuff, you would be losing your minds.
Mainstream media would watch right-wing media melt down, and they too would take the bait and cover it nonstop. But now that a Republican has access to all of our private data, right-wing media takes it with a shrug, and the mainstream press sees that and figures, well, if they're not freaking out, we shouldn't either. And now we're in a situation where the richest man in the world has access to all of our private information about Americans, and somehow we're supposed to be fine with it. Like, I'm old enough to remember the entire right calling Hillary Clinton the biggest national security threat America's ever seen because she used a private email server, and keeping private information private was purportedly that important to Republicans. And yet now, stick a bunch of 19-year-olds into the Treasury system and they don't have a single word to say? That is the definition of partisan hacks who stand for nothing. Now, while Republicans don't seem to mind Elon and his band of high schoolers rummaging through our Social Security numbers, a judge has taken a different tack. Here's Mark Elias explaining what happened at the hands of a federal judge in New York.
Yeah, this is a blockbuster ruling from a federal judge in New York City who was asked on an emergency basis to block DOJ's access to these very sensitive databases at the U.S. Treasury Department, not just to block Elon Musk's access, right? Some of the earlier cases we've talked about, there has been this kind of like parsing about whether Doge could still be in the Treasury Department, but it was read only and they couldn't write, or whether only the special government employees could have access to the information, but not others. What this judge did is said nobody from Doge can have access to these databases. Only career civil servants within the Treasury Department can have access to these databases, and that any materials or printouts or downloads of any information from these databases have to be destroyed by anyone associated with Doge who may have them. So this judge has really, at this point, put a complete halt on the infiltration, the exfiltration of data, the infiltration with personnel, the embedding of personnel into these databases that have personally identifying information like people's Social Security numbers.
That's great, but it's a little late, right? This is the exact problem, is the courts will get around to being like, whoa, that is illegal. Stop it. Put all the money back, destroy all the fingerprints, take out all the things you've already done, right? Who is now going to make them do it? Because the Trump administration, J.D. Vance, they're already talking about impeaching judges, and the judges don't what the judges say isn't true. We don't have to do that, right? So where the rubber meets the road is they're going to continue doing whatever they decide to continue doing and not destroying things they've already got it. So ownership's 9/10 of the law. Who's going to go in there and pry it out of their hands?
Is a big, bold order from a very good, experienced federal judge in New York City. It's only a temporary hold until the case can be ultimately heard on the merits and decided. That is true about all these cases we're hearing about, and no one should worry about that. That's how the system works, right? Is that first there's an emergency order and there's sort of a status quo put in place, and then the case is decided from there.
And because Republicans are strict constitutionalists and respect the rule of law, Elon took to Twitter demanding that the federal judge who dared suggest that random teenagers shouldn't be able to access private data at the U.S. Treasury be impeached. Quote, a corrupt judge protecting corruption. He needs to be impeached now. Wow. That's your law and order party at work. Federal judge makes the cardinal sin of trying to keep our private information private, and now, suddenly, he should be impeached. This was Glenn Kirshner's response to that move by Elon.
This is like Elon Musk sort of rounding up a posse of lawless thugs saying the rule of law doesn't matter. The sanctity of federal judges and the responsibility federal judges have to keep, for example, a runaway executive branch or legislative branch in check by applying the rule of law to it doesn't matter. The Constitution doesn't matter. If you disagree with something that Donald Trump and his co-president Elon Musk are trying to do, we are coming after you in the most lawless way. We're going to ask that you be impeached, that you be removed from office, that you at least figuratively be dragged off the federal bench by the scruff of your black robe. This is lawlessness run amok. And, you know, when Elon Musk says something like, this is a corrupt judge acting corruptly, that is stone cold bullshit. That is a judge in New York, a federal judge in the Southern District of New York, applying the facts and the law to a question of whether things should be temporarily frozen, whether there should be a temporary injunction or a temporary restraining order issued to put a stop to the potential lawlessness of Elon Musk and his band of frat boys getting into our, among other things, PII, personal identifying information, our financial information. This is stuff that these, part-time government employees or, temporary government employees, limited purpose government employees are not permitted to access.
The reality is that right now, Elon's overreach is obvious, and it's made worse by virtue of the fact that the party shielding him is the same party that once pretended to care about government overreach. This is a party that swept into office on the pretense of small government that is now enabling an unelected billionaire and his band of high school graduates access to our information that nobody should have access to. If the GOP was capable of shame, they wouldn't be able to do what they're doing right now. But while they're fine with the pilfering of our private information, at least the federal judiciary is picking up the common sense that's lacking among the Republican Party.
That's well said, if the Republican Party were capable of shame. But I think dial in on that for a second, because it's not just a rhetorical device. These people are not capable of shame. So what does that imply about the rest of their personality? They talk as though decorum is important and they're operating on the same, reality rule set as the rest of us. But these are people that are not inhibited by morality and shame in the same way that what most of us consider everybody is. These people are not capable of shame. It doesn't make any sense to them. It's just a sucker's game, right? But they're smart enough to talk kind of a human game, right? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments.